I just a moment ago saw Mr. and Mrs. Partridge into the meeting.
Yes,
I believe their application is this afternoon at 1 o'clock, not this morning at 10.
correct. I'm going to be speaking to that issue,
Thank you.
timing issue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Emily, I see that we're live on YouTube. According to my computer screen, it's 10:06. We are having a extended meeting today, in that we're starting at in the morning for minor variances, and one consent application that was before us at a previous meeting. We, of course, are sitting as the Committee of Adjustment, and I would like to call this meeting to order. Sandra, if I could turn to you, please, for the explanation of our meeting today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you said, that this is an extended meeting, we do have a number of applications. So the Committee of Adjustment is meeting this morning at 10 o'clock to hear minor variance applications. And then they will recess and meet again this afternoon at 1 o'clock for any consent to sever applications. So while you are welcome to sit and listen to what's going on, this is a public meeting and you're more than welcome. You do not have to stay for the morning session if your application is scheduled for 1 o'clock. So if you wish to leave this meeting at this point, that's fine. But if you are one of the people with the minor variance application, I do suggest that you stay online. With respect to the one consent application, sorry, what? Oh, with respect to the one consent application that we are rehearing, that was advertised for 1 o'clock. So I guess it's on the wrong spot in the agenda. That will be moved down to this afternoon's session. With respect to the procedure, this is a Committee of Adjustment, and we are hearing minor variance applications this morning. The chairperson will announce each application in order, and the planning coordinator, myself, will provide a synopsis of the planning report. The entire report is available on the township website should you wish to review it. The floor will be open to the public. Please make yourself known, and the orders, you can raise your hand through the system. The order speaking is as follows. Those persons in support of the application, those persons in opposition to the application, those persons seeking clarification, and the applicant will have an opportunity to speak at the end should they desire. Please note that all persons wishing to speak to the application must address their comments and questions to the chair. And before speaking, you must clearly and slowly state your name and address so that the record is complete. Members of the committee may make comments or ask questions as they deem necessary. The committee may make decisions this morning, and the reasons for their decision and the impact of public input will be provided by the committee members. Those persons requesting a copy of the notice of decision must do so in writing to myself, the Secretary Treasurer. Please be sure that you state the file number and name of the applicant on your request. You may either email me or you can put a letter in our drop box at the front of the municipal office to the left side of the front door. I think that was it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sandra. Our next point is the confirmation of agenda. It should be noted that we do have an amendment setting aside business arising from the previous minutes, being 6.1, being a consent application, and that will be moved to this afternoon. So could I entertain a mover and a seconder, please, to the modified agenda? Moved by Larry, seconded by Bill. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, could I have a vote, please? Bill in favor, Larry in favor. Mark, are you in favor?
Yay.
Thank you. Moving on to point 4, the declaration of pecuniary interest, and I believe one has been filed. And Larry, would you like to speak to this, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'd like to declare pecuniary interest on the property on the minor variance number A1721 to Claude LeBlanc. And it is vacant land, Lakeshore Drive, Harwood, part lot 5, concession 9, being part 1 on RP 39R-1579. I decline on this because it's within 200 meters of our property, and I feel that I in all fairness, I shouldn't be trying to make a decision on this one.
Thank you, Larry. That shall be noted. If I might turn to staff, this may very well be our first declaration through the Zoom process. Historically, the committee member has left the session, which historically meant leaving the room. In this particular situation, when we're on Zoom and we need to call back that committee member after that application, obviously we can't lose video or audio or something here. Could staff please advise what our process would be? Emily, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's not a problem. So when we get to that particular application, I can put committee member Williamson on hold, which will remove him from the live feed and the live meeting, and he goes into a waiting room where he will not have access to the conversation. And then once that application's been dealt with, I can bring him back in if that suits.
It certainly works for me, and I believe would for the rest of the committee members as well.
I'm good with
Thank
that.
you, Emily.
And Chairman, I see that we also have a hand raised in the gallery from Wendy Holloway. I'm unsure if at this time there's a question that she would like answered now, or that's something you'd like to wait for.
It probably would be most appropriate to wait for the application, unless it's very much a generic question that needs to be answered by staff. Sandra, Arthur, I'll turn to you, or maybe even yourself, Emily. My thought is it needs to be dealt with at the time of the application that you may have interest to, although we're not 100% sure which application she has interest in. So staff, if you could direct me, please, on the protocol here.
I would suggest that because the public portion of this meeting hasn't been open to the floor, that all questions wait until the appropriate time.
And that appropriate time would be at the beginning of the first application? Or should we assume, because of where Wendy Holloway lives, that she may have interest in the minor variance adjacent to her?
I would suggest it's when the floor is open after I give my staff report. That's the time for questions and comments from the public.
Okay, thank you. I'm reading that it's at the time of this particular application then.
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any other declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, that shall be noted. Thank you, Larry. Bullet point 5, approval of the minutes of August 17th, 2021. Entertain a motion and a seconder, please. Moved by Bill, seconded by Larry. Any comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none. Bill, yay. Larry? Yay. Mark?
Yay.
Thank you. So bullet point 6 being the severance consent application in Bewdley, being B1021, has been moved to a different location on our agenda for this afternoon.
Yes.
Our very first application for minor variance is A17-21, being Claude LeBlanc. And this may very well be after your reading here, Sandra, where we provide the public an opportunity to speak.
Yes,
So Sandra, A 17-21 LeBlanc, please.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for vacant land on Lakeshore Road in
I have to
Harwood.
be removed. I have to be removed from this.
That is
apparently.
correct. Thank you.
Well, Larry's been removed. That was very quick. Sandra, please.
Thank you, Emily. Yes, this is for vacant land on Lakeshore Drive in Harwood. It's recommended the Committee of Adjustment receive my report, hear the members of the public as requested, and that the minor variance request be deferred, permitting the applicant opportunities to provide required engineering information with respect to the proposed development.
Sandra, you're muted.
Try that again.
I believe, Sandra, you really do need to start from the first part.
Okay. Again, this is for application A 1721, Claude LeBlanc, vacant land on Lakeshore Drive in Harwood. It's recommended that Committee of Adjustment receive the variance report, that the members of the public be heard as requested, and that the variance request be deferred, permitting the applicant opportunity to provide required engineering information. The notice of public meeting was circulated to the neighbors on September 1, 2001, and the signs were posted on the property on August 31, 2021, I beg your pardon, in accordance with the regulations of the Planning Act. This application is seeking relief from section 11(3)(b)(1) to permit a reduced front setback of 3 meters where 20 meters is required for a single detached dwelling. From section 11(3)(b)(2) to permit a reduced rear setback of 15 meters where 20 meters is required. From section 11(3)(b)(4) to permit a reduced exterior side setback of 15 meters where 20 meters is required. And section 5821 to permit a reduced setback from the high water mark of 15 meters where 20 meters is required. The applicant's reasons for not complying with the bylaw: the existing setbacks do not allow building on the lot given the size and irregular shape of the property. This is vacant land and the surrounding properties are residential in nature. The proposal for a single detached dwelling is consistent with policies of the provincial policy statement and the township official plan, as settlement area designations are where residential uses are encouraged to locate. With respect to the zoning bylaw, the property is zoned waterfront residential with an environmentally sensitive area along the shore of Rice Lake. The use of the single detached dwelling is permitted subject to the various zone provisions. The waterfront residential zone requires a minimum of basically 2 acres of land and 150 feet of frontage. This is an existing lot of record that does not meet these requirements. The property is assessed at 0.2 acres, and there appears to be about 43 feet of frontage on a municipally maintained year-round road. There's an additional 155 feet of frontage along the unopened portion of the township road allowance that leads to water. This road allowance has a steep slope and is used as municipal parkette or overlook to Rice Lake. Section 5.12 of the bylaw speaks to developing on existing lot of record and does permit development provided that the parcel has a minimum of 7.5 meters or 24 feet of frontage on a municipally maintained year-round road. And it appears that this property does have that. The variance is being required from the setback as a 17-meter variance, front setback, from the rear setback, a 5-meter variance, from the exterior side, a 5-meter variance, and from the high water mark, a 5-meter variance. Given that the proposed front setback is 3 meters is adjacent to the unopened road allowance and not on the bend of the traveled road, this reduction could be considered as appropriate development in the area. Extrapolating from the definitions in the bylaw, the most northwesterly point of the property is the rear lot line, and the waterfront is the exterior side. The reduction in setbacks from these lines could be considered appropriate given the lack of development potential by others from these points. The reduction in the setback from the high water mark is discussed with the Conservation Authority. Agency comments. Public Works Roads Department, they have concerns with the application and they suggest engineering review to confirm that this is a suitable building lot. There's very minimal frontage and entrance would be more in the parkland versus the maintained roadway. Engineering can confirm this. Topography and elevations are steep. Driveway may be difficult to install. Engineer will need to complete a survey and design to confirm it's suitable with township practice. Stamp drawing will be necessary. We'll need to review Lakeshore Road infrastructure and confirm there's no negative impacts. Existing utilities may be impacted if they are needed to be relocated. They cannot have any negative impacts on adjacent properties and the road allowance. Existing road has been recently constructed and additional deposits may be required. Sediment and erosion control will be crucial elements. It should be designed and approved by the engineer. There is an existing stormwater ditch along the minimal frontage. This might be impacted. If it needs to be altered, it will need to be designed and approved. The Conservation Authority, the proponent did provide a drawing indicating the location of the floodplain high water mark of 187.5 meters. The proposed dwelling will be outside this area. Being on the Trent Severn waterway, the floodplain elevation on Rice Lake will be 187.5 meters. Conservation will always be looking for this number for new habitable development on Rice Lake. As for top of bank, they have no concerns. Top of bank typically refers to a valley associated with a water course. Technically, Rice Lake can be considered part of the riverine system, but they're not worried about the slope stability. The elevations range from around 2 meters and are roughly a ratio of 3 to 1. With respect to setbacks on the top of bank, conservation would normally require a minimum setback as well. However, valley integrity, or lack of a better term, for lack of a better term, has been compromised in this instance as many of the houses in Harwood are located in close proximity to Rice Lake. On this basis, considering the development is outside the high water mark or Rice Lake floodplain, all development maintains 15 meters from the lake. There are no concerns with slope stability perspective, albeit ESC and stabilization measures will be required on the permit drawings, and no further setbacks from the top of bank would be required in the valley system already, as the valley system has already has considerable development and disturbances. They do not anticipate any issues from their end, and a permit will be required from the Conservation Authority. Since authoring this report, I have received comments from the Township Building Department. Although typically reviewed during the building permit process based on topography, the Building Department recommends a plan be submitted showing proposed elevations and cross sections to determine surface drainage patterns. This shall include landscape features such as retaining walls if part of the proposed design. In conclusion, actually at this point, Mr. Chairman, I will read the public comments that I have received. This is from Joan Burkett. Her address is 93 Ontario Street in Port Hope. My name is Joan Burkett. I am the registered owner of 5441 Lakeshore Drive, Harwood since 2005. Mr. Claude LeBlanc have been friends for many years. He has always expressed a desire to develop his waterfront land, respecting the existing landscape and natural environment. I am full favor of this variance and welcome the addition of a new permanent structure. From Michelle Cormier of 5435 Lakeshore Drive. I would like to submit this letter in support of the variance application on Lakeshore Drive. I'm currently the owner of 5435 Lakeshore Drive and have resided in the neighborhood for over a decade now. I believe the projected build will fit well into the evolving streetscape with the newer builds in the area. I have been a longtime neighbor of the applicant who has always been successful in showing community support and attends to anyone in need, are willing to help without question. I more than welcome him to build in the community and continue his positive contributions to our neighborhood. And this is from Jade Chatton and Wendy Holloway of (5430) Lakeshore Drive, Suite 100 in Harwood. We are the owners of the adjacent home to this vacant property of the subject variance application. Our objections and concerns are as follows, per the variance application. Relief from section 11.3.1 front setback, requesting a 17-meter variance reduction, 20 meters to 3 meters, or 85%, is too large an actual measurement to be considered a minor variance. Our objection is based on the impact on neighboring properties in the immediate and general area as related to the loss of sunlight, privacy, view, spacing, and openness, which may result from the mass, height, bulk, and positioning of the proposed structure. These will also relate to issues to property access, tree removal, parking, water drainage, and noise. 2, relief from section 11.3.2 rear setback. Setback detail unclear. 3, relief from section 11.3.4 exterior setback. Setback detail unclear. 4, relief from section 5.8.2.2 watermark setback. Our objection base is noted in item 3 below. This request does not abide the official plan of the township. 5, height of the stories indicates 34 feet plus or minus. A vague submission that has important impact to view obstruction and privacy from our existing home. Clarification of land use does not maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan. 1, the variance document indicates that there is off-road parking spaces for 2 cars. The drawing does not clearly define the space availability for 2 vehicles that are entirely on the subject lot. In addition, referencing the township official plan section 12.37, parking areas shall be designed to incorporate proper stormwater management. It is unclear in the case of this intended land use that the space is available for 2 cars and stormwater management will not be affected. 2, access to public road. Referencing the official plan section 11.1, all new development shall have frontage and direct access to an improved public road, which is maintained year-round by the municipality or other public authority. This is clearly not the case of this intended land use. 3, setbacks from water. Referencing the official plan, section 11.17. All buildings and structures, except for electric power transmission lines and other public utilities, marinas, and marine facilities, should generally be set back a minimum of 30 meters from the high water mark of any permanent water body or water course in order to minimize visual disruption to the land and to help avoid water pollution and protection of environmental and heritage features. This is clearly not the case of this intended land use. Additional comments, concerns with this request of committee of adjustment and various circulation consideration. Bullet point 1, as the Hamilton Township Roads Department is aware, the water flow from the newly constructed Lakeshore Drive still flows across our property. The Roads Department is in the process of investigating, and a possible solution may be to add a ditch and driveway culvert extending the entire frontage of Lakeshore Drive. This will drain directly along our property and eventually into the water course of the newly installed surface water drain of Lakeshore Parkette, referenced with the township drawings as a road allowance. The driveway location of variance A1721 needs to be considered as a perpendicular interference without additional culverts, and a designed water drain course. Bullet point 2, as designed into the newly installed curbing of Lakeshore Drive, a designed curb drainway flows directly onto the subject lot of this variance. This again further complicates the water drain flow, naturally or man-made. This also must be taken into account in the development of the property as Township Roads Department investigates. Bullet point 3, if a future agreement is defined and reached to access the subject lot via the west side of the water drain course, AKA road allowance, this will define provocation for the owner on the east side adjacent lot to also access via the water drain course, in effect allowing 2 access points from an unimproved public road. Bullet point 4, although not part of this procedure, the applicant has not received septic design sizing from Northumberland County. The lot concept details the subject system is situated on a higher elevation from the well. Bullet point 5, the provided drawing does not define 15-meter setback from the well from any structure. It may appear to be within the guidelines. This is from Jay Chatton and Wendy Holloway. In conclusion, the commenting agencies offered no objections, but serious engineering questions have been raised. It would appear to be prudent to have the engineering questions answered prior to granting relief from the provisions of the bylaw, as development of an existing lot of record may not be possible at this time. Should the committee wish to move forward, the committee must satisfy itself that the 4 tests of a variance are met prior to granting relief for each item. Is the relief minor in nature? Does it maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? Does it maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? And is it desirable for the appropriate development and use of the land? If any one of these tests fails, then they all fail and relief cannot be granted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sandra. I believe we're going to have some public comments here on this application, although I may not be able to see everyone from my screen. So to my fellow committee members and staff, please help me if I'm missing out on anyone here. To follow procedure, I would simply ask, is our applicant and or agent with us? And if so, I would like to advise that it is common practice to acknowledge their presence and provide them an opportunity to speak to this application, traditionally at the end of others and that have spoken first. So Mr. LeBlanc, is that you? And obviously you're the applicant. So would you like to acknowledge your presence? And do you wish to speak to the application in a few moments? You're on mute, Mr. LeBlanc.
Sorry about that. Yes, I'm Claude LeBlanc, and I certainly would like to speak to the application.
We'll maybe have more questions in a minute for you, and will certainly be provided that opportunity.
Great, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that's in support of the application? I see none. Is there anyone in the audience wishing clarification on the application? I see none. Is there anyone in the audience who would be in opposition to the application?
We would be in opposition.
Thank you. Wendy, for the record, would you state your name and your address, even though it's been read in before? Would you state that again now, please?
Yes. My name is Wendy Holloway, and myself and my husband Jay Chatton live at 100 5430 Lakeshore Drive, Harwood. Do you want the postal code?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Please proceed, Wendy.
So I mean, I have to say we had realized it was going to be read in detail. It's quite wordy, but you know, our main concerns with this, I do have a question, first of all, when we said about the number 2 and 3, the setback 11.3, 2 and 4, it seems on the picture that the rear setback line and the exterior side lot line, it seems to speak of the same, seems to be mentioned twice. So what, my question is this, is the rear lot line the line that goes along our property?
Sandra, I'll defer that to you.
Thank you. Yes. Based on the definitions in the zoning bylaw, because this is a triangular piece of property, the rear lot line is the point furthest from the front lot line. So the rear lot line is actually a point. It's not a line.
Oh, okay.
And then the
Okay.
waterfront is the exterior side. So yes, they are the same, but then again, they are slightly different.
Okay, okay. That was one thing that needs to be clarified. So, you know, I guess our main issue is just the amount of variance for the first relief is quite significant. The other main concerns, as detailed, is we're having significant water problems. Since there was always some, but since the road was redone and the curbs, there is like a dip in the curb and the water comes down the hill. There's no storm sewers on our side, so it comes down the hill from both sides and then all drains onto our property. Now, right now, where that little lip is actually is draining, and we helped it to drain, I have to admit that, onto Claude's property, which is not an issue right now, but it will be if there's a house there. So we do have concerns about the water, especially with the location of the septic bed. You know, only 3 meters from our lot line. If all the water continues to flow down through there, we see that there could be an issue there with that. We also, I have to say, question the ability to put that septic bed in there in the first place. We when we first started to do our house, and we've just been here less than a year, the septic, we had a similar size septic proposed, but the soil sample, when the soil sample was done, it's such heavy clay, it wouldn't allow absorption from the septic bed, the leaching bed. So ours is this huge, a huge septic bed. So I question the ability of it. That doesn't, I guess, it relates to the issue of water. We're concerned about the water coming down through there. So that is the main issues with the property going ahead there. I mean, obviously, it will impact our view, but we are a little concerned about some of the big trees that are right on the lot line as it comes right with the septic coming right up to that. But I realize that the 3 meters is allowed, so that for a side lot line. So that, I think that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Wendy. Just to point out to you, this is your opportunity to speak to all of the components. There's not an opportunity for you as a person in opposition to come back to this into the future, even within this application day.
Okay, so I have one more question then.
Please.
The fifth point, the height of the building. So it says 34 feet plus or minus. So plus or minus what? Like, is there a allowed plus or minus, or how could it end up being? I think the allowed amount is a 36-foot high building. So would it be plus or minus that it would be allowed to go up to 36 feet then?
Sandra's saying yes.
Okay,
Yes. If they're under 36 feet, then that's fine. If at the
Okay.
end of the day, they realize that the building height is above the 11-meter mark, I think is the actual provision, then they would have to return for another variance.
Or modify the project.
Exactly.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Is there anyone else in the audience in opposition to this application? Emily, I'll defer to you for a second here. Do you see anyone in our audience that would like to speak?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Emily. Mr. LeBlanc, this would be your opportunity to speak to the information that's been provided by staff, and as well the information that's come from the concern of opposition. We then will move on after you speak. We will then move on to our committee members who may have other questions for you. Mr. LeBlanc, please. You're on mute again, Mr. LeBlanc.
Sorry about that. Well, thank you for this meeting to consider these minor variances and comments on all sides. Also, I just wanted to recognize that Chris Hay is here. He's my agent, the designer of the build. So if there's any technical issues, I'd be happy if allowed, perhaps he could speak to those as well. But what I'd like to say is I've lived and worked in Northumberland County for 33 years, and basically with the past 17 years in Harwood. And I'm planning to continue my retirement in this welcoming community. Basically, I've always enjoyed the relaxed pace of Harwood. It's a very nice place to live. I'm proposing the build on a building lot of record where Skipper Shack actually once stood. That's the former cottage that was there. And it's my intent, as far as a general concept, that the proposed home would blend in with the natural surroundings. And that's a very important concern of mine. And that it would be landscaped with native trees, current trees, as much as possible. I certainly wouldn't want to take down even a single tree, but I recognize that I know there's at least one tree that would have to come down. And also including grass species of Rice Lake that are native to the land, which would provide a natural setting for the home and also the local wildlife. A feature of the home would be expansive windows to enjoy the lake view and of course, the amazing sunsets that we all know exist from the South Shore. Basically, having grown up with family cottaging, I've always been drawn to lakeside living throughout my life. And I'm hoping that the tradition continues actually here on Lakeshore Drive in Harwood. In terms of specific concerns, I know I've certainly chatted with Wendy and Jay in the recent past regarding the visual appearance of a home to the east of theirs. And I can say that there's some obstruction, there's definitely tall trees or maybe cedar hedges. I can't quite recall, but there will be a view of the house to some extent. There's no question about that. Except I'm more than happy to work with anybody that has concerns or questions, even as we further the final design of the home. So I extend that offer to Wendy and Jay. I can't speak to any of the technical issues that were raised in me, as I just don't know enough technically with respect to the concerns that were outlined in Wendy and Jay's concerns. I would defer that to Chris, if I may. I can't think of anything I'm leaving out. I do believe that there, we provide for 2 parking spaces directly on the building envelope or on the property, and I should say, and I thought that was an issue, so I just wanted to make a note of that. But that's all I can think of at the moment. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. And now we'll move to our committee members, and they may very well have questions for yourself or your agent. Just because of our situation here, I'll go Bill. Any questions or comments?
Okay, thanks, Scott. No, I had concerns, and they've already been mentioned by, various people. I am concerned that there are actually 2 parking spaces. I am concerned about the septic, and I am concerned about the drainage. And I think the idea that we defer this for an engineering study is probably the fairest thing that we can do. That would answer the questions that I have. It would answer the questions that people in opposition have. It would give the technical expert who's working with Mr. LeBlanc an opportunity to, for the lack of a better word, prove that this is actually doable. So I believe we need that engineering study.
Thank you, Bill. Mark, please.
Yeah, can you hear me, Scott?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Because I don't see me on the screen at all.
We don't see either, Mark.
Okay. I think I was the main culprit for that noise at the beginning. I do apologize. I had my phone on and the computer on at the same time, so it must have did some backfeeding. Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly with what Bill had said. And in fact, those are almost my exact words I was going to say. So yeah, I would agree to defer this one till we get an engineer's report back.
Thank you, Mark. I will proceed with my thoughts and concerns, and they're almost identical to what has been spoken, but maybe in just a little more detail. There are specific parking stall sizes and numbers required for any development. They are also specific in where they can be located on the property and setbacks from property limits. So I emphasize that, and I believe that any future submission should include that detail so that the committee can feel comfortable that that component has met the requirements of the zoning document. In addition to that, there is obviously the drainage, which has been adequately discussed, and I support that comment as well. Also, I question Mr. LeBlanc or Mr. Hay, has the County of Northumberland actually been to the site to review for their comments in respect to the septic area?
Yeah, I can speak to that. No, they haven't. I made an assumption that they would be part of the, one of the agencies would be contacted as far as the minor variance. So they'll still have to be contacted.
Thank you. They would have been circulated, Sandra, the application, but the component of their comments without site review, again, concerns me. This is not an easy lot. I think we are all aware of that. But them providing a comment without being on site is, I don't think, fair to any of the process. I wish we could ask for something different in many occasions, and this is one of them. The other question that, or the other comment that I have rather is, I'm having a concept problem with the first section of request where we're taking a 20-meter setback for the front yard and reducing it to 3 meters, as to whether that will in fact be considered minor in nature to the point of getting committee support. That is a substantial reduction. I do have concerns with that. In addition to that, I have one additional concern, and my application notes that I have of my own here state that this lot has 42 foot of frontage on a year-round maintained road. I am somewhat familiar with the Harwood area. I am familiar with the previous structure that was there. And I'm somewhat familiar with the lot, albeit I'm certainly not a surveyor and I'm certainly not a roads department person. But I would question, is this lot enjoying 42 foot of frontage on a year-round maintained road? And to that end, I'll defer that to staff and ask Sandra, I guess, what is the source of that 42 feet that has been mentioned?
I have a reference plan. I hope I can find the right one. I carefully looked at the reference plans available to me when I was doing my report to try and figure out how much land there was, how much frontage there was.
If that's the source, and for this conversation, I'm going to assume your early thoughts are correct. It was a reference plan review. Is that something that could be circulated to our roads department for confirmation that this lot does have the minimum
Absolutely.
required frontage?
Right, absolutely.
I would suggest that that would be to our advantage in making a decision. I'll simply
Will
come
do.
back. I'll simply come back to our committee members. Are there any further questions from anyone? I believe it is in order then for a motion on this. Mark, you are visually available to us now, so we can see your hand being raised. So we're advantaged that way. Motion, please. Moved by Bill for deferral. Bill,
I would move to deferral as suggested by staff, and add to that we do need county septic study to be included in the engineering study, along with drainage and parking.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
thank you. Well, I guess we can immediately go to vote. Bill, yay. Mark, yay. Scott, yay. So if there's any questions, Mr. LeBlanc or Mr. Hay or Wendy, feel free to go through staff at a different occasion other than today as we move through this meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sandra, when you're available, we'll move on to our next application, which is another minor variance, and we need to bring Larry back in, Emily. We'll move on to our next application being the Milson application.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is application A1921, Scott and Lois.
Just a moment, Sandra. We should acknowledge in our minutes that Larry has returned and is.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you, Sandra. Sorry.
Okay, again, this is A1921, Scott and Lois Milson, 3031 Stu Black Road. It's recommended the committee receive the report of staff and that members of the public be heard as requested, and the variance requested be granted as it appears to be in good keeping with planning principles. This is in fulfillment of provisional consent for application B0720 and B1920, seeking relief from the following section of the zoning bylaw to recognize the location of the existing non-complying detached accessory building. From section 73B1 to recognize the reduced front setback of 11.34 meters, 37.2 feet, for a minimum of 20 meters, 65.6 feet is required. The applicant's reasons for not complying with the bylaw: the building was constructed prior to him purchasing the property and cannot be moved. Should be noted that the notice of public meeting was circulated on September 1, and the signs were posted on the property on August 26, 2021, in accordance with the Planning Act. The existing use of the subject lands is residential, and the existing use of abutting lands is residential and agricultural. The provincial policy statement and township official plan appear to be met, the intentions thereof appear to be met in the recognition of this existing building. With respect to the zoning bylaw, the subject lands are zoned marginal agricultural, and there is a house and existing accessory building which enjoys the non-complying status with respect to setback from the road. The applicants applied for and were granted provisional consent for new lot creation under application B0720, and for lot addition under B1920, subject to various conditions, one of them being to recognize the location of the non-complying building. As the subject property is no longer the exact same property as it was at the date of the passage of the bylaw in 2001, and therefore any existing status is lost. So the variance request is 8.66 meters or 28.4 feet. It also must be noted that when the surveyor's real property report was submitted, a small chicken coop was illustrated. This is not part of the initial submission for either consent application, and the coop does not meet the minimum separation distance required between it and any new residential use on the lot being created via B0720. The use of a chicken coop itself is permitted, but it must be in the right location on the southeast side of the house. The applicants have been made aware of this, and when the time comes to stamp the deed for new lot creation, a site inspection will need to be conducted to confirm that the coop has been either removed or relocated to an appropriate location. No comments were received at the time of authoring the report, and I'll just quickly double check my emails to see if anything came in. I do apologize for this quick delay. The building department has no objection. That's the only comments I have received since authoring the report. And I've got to get everybody back here. I've lost everybody, I'm sorry. Anyway, this is an existing building and no additional impacts to the township or the abutting neighbors will be realized. So we're just recognizing what's there to satisfy the zoning bylaw and the Planning Act. The committee must satisfy itself that the 4 tests of a variance are met prior to granting relief. Is the relief minor in nature? Does it maintain the intent of the zoning bylaw? Does it maintain the intent of the official plan? And is it desirable for the appropriate development and use of the land? If any one of these tests fails, then they all fail and relief cannot be granted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sandra. We'll move to the audience. I believe our applicant is with us. Mr. Milson, please, for the record, indicate your name and address and whether you wish to speak to this application or answer questions if there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Milson, 3031 Stu Black Road. I don't have any comments to add to this at this time. So I won't take up your time.
Thank you. We'll come back to you if there's questions from the committee. Is there anyone else here in support of the application in your audience? Seeing none, is there anyone here in seeking clarification on the application? Seeing none, is there anyone here in the audience wishing to comment in opposition to the application? Seeing none, I'll move to committee members. I believe I can see you all now, so feel free to provide comments. Any comments or questions? I simply have one, and that is, I believe this building did enjoy a building permit at the time it was constructed. And I do believe that it was in compliance with the zoning provisions at that time. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Larry? Please, motion of support.
I motion that we grant this application.
Thank you, Larry. Seconder, Mark? Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Passes. Sandra, you need reasonings or no?
Yes, please.
Larry, you moved, please.
The applicant's request is reasonable and clearly fulfills the 4 reasons for the minor variance. And there's been no objections from the public, or written or verbal.
Thank you.
Anything further, Mark? Thank you. Sandra, is that sufficient for your records?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Sandra, when you are available, we will move on to our next application, which is A2121, minor variance on 45 Highway in the intersection of Dale Road, County Road 74.
Thank you. A2121, Marcel Gregoire, 4848 County Road 45 in Baltimore. It's recommended the Committee of Adjustment receive a variance report, that the members of the public be heard as requested, and the variance request be granted as it appears to be in keeping with good planning principles. The notice of public meeting was circulated on September 1, 2021, and the signs were posted on the property on September 8, 2021 in accordance with the Planning Act. Application seeking relief to permit the construction of a detached accessory building. Relief is from section 525(2) to permit the accessory building to sit proud of the principal building where behind the front wall of the principal building is required. The applicant's reasons for not complying with the bylaw. The possible locations are limited due to the septic system and the steep inclines to the south and west of the house. Existing land uses are residential, and existing uses of budding property are residential as well. The proposal is in keeping with the provincial policy statement and the official plan, as residential uses and accessory uses thereto are encouraged in the settlement area of Baltimore. With respect to the zoning bylaw, subject lands are zoned urban residential first density, and the single detached dwelling and accessory uses are permitted. Section 525(2) of the bylaw requires that any accessory building and or structure which is not part of the main building shall be erected to the rear of the projected front wall of the main building. The proposed detached accessory building is to be in front of the front wall of the main building, the house. It sits proud of the house. As the topography of the land does not support putting the building to the side or rear of the house. The new building is also proposed to be over 600 feet from the road and visually buffered by trees, so there won't be any sightline impacts. The proposed detached accessory building appears to be in keeping with the intent of the general provisions of the bylaw. Emily, can we please go to the diagram? Based on the definitions in the bylaw, this particular property has 2 road frontages, one on County Road 45 and one on County Road 74. And by definition, the smaller dimension is the lot frontage. Therefore, Dale Road is the lot frontage, and County Road 45 is the exterior side setback, exterior side. That's why I've been speaking to this new building sitting proud of the front of the house, because although The door of the house, the front door of the house, I believe, faces County Road 45. By definition, the northern wall is the front of the house. I also like to make note that the previous owner did obtain a variance in 2015 with respect to the garage on the property, but did not build in accordance with the decision of the committee. While this is no fault of the current owner, it is emphasized that any new building must be constructed in accordance with the decision of the committee, which is based on the information submitted to them for review. With respect to agency comments, County of Northumberland, they note that the property abuts County 45 and County 74 in accordance with the county entrance and setback policy. A setback in a rural settlement area must be 30 meters from the center line of the county road or the setback identified in the municipal bylaw without variance. There's no proposed variance to the township zoning bylaw road setback requirement. The county road setback permit will be required as part of the building permit process. The applicant has indicated to county planning that the proposed shed would be 165 feet from the center line of County Road 45 and 155 feet from the center line of County Road 74. For information, we note that the proposed shed must be 1.5 meters from the existing sewage system on the property. A sketch provided with the application illustrates the location of the shed and sewage system. It appears there's sufficient area on the property to meet the minimum clearance requirements. Based on the foregoing, the county would have no objection to proposed variance to allow the shed to be located in front of the existing house. In conclusion, the commenting agencies offered no objections, and the planning department does support the proud location of the detached accessory building. Committee must satisfy itself that the 4 tests of a variance are met prior to granting relief for each item. Is the relief minor in nature? Does it maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? Does it maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? And is it desirable for the appropriate development and use of the land? If one of the tests fails, then they all fail and relief cannot be granted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sandra. Is our applicant with us today, our agent?
I know the applicant had been out of town for a couple of days. I don't know if he's returned or available to join us today.
Very well, we'll move on. Is there anyone in the audience in support of the application? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience in opposition, in seeking clarification to the application? Seeing none, is there anyone present in the audience in opposition to the application? Again, seeing none, I'll move to committee members. Larry, you've missed an application here this morning, so we'll go to you first. Any questions or comments?
I only have one comment that on page 3 of the document, it says, based on the foregoing, the county would have no objection in proposed variance to allow the shed to be located in front of the existing house at 4848 County Road 45. Yet our planner indicates that the front of the house is located on Dale Road or County Road. I forget, what is the county road?
74.
74. So it's a little misleading in that case, so that if it is judged this way, I have no objection at all with this variance.
I believe, if I may, Mr. Chairman, that because the shed will be in front of the house, but the house address is actually on County Road 45. So I understand the confusion, but it is an accurate statement. It won't be in front of the wall at County Road 45, but it's still in front of the house that happens to be on County Road 45. But the county was circulated with all the necessary information, the drawings that you have, and they've offered no objection, despite how they've worded it.
Thereby, I have no objection.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Mark, any questions or comments? Bill, any questions or comments?
No, I'm ready to move forward with a motion to approve.
If we could just hesitate for 1 second, Bill, I do have one question, Sandra. In your notes, you said that there was a previous minor variance granted for this property.
Yes,
Excuse me, I do remember that. But you also went on to say that it was not constructed in accordance with the approved variance. Was it constructed legally with the zoning approvals? In other words, what I'm really asking, should this variance be addressing any outstanding issues with that previous building?
the previous variance allowed the garage to be built in front of the front line exterior, front line of the house. It still meets the required setbacks of, let's see, it's got a 12-meter setback. Half a second, please. The zone, the UR1 zone requires a 10-meter setback from the exterior lot line, and they've provided over at least 12 meters. So I think it does still comply. It's just, it sits in front of the exterior side of the house, as well as it sits in front of the house. It is a little bit different than what was granted by the committee. And this is no fault of the current owner. You're muted, Mr. Chairman. You're muted, Mr. Chairman.
I was coughing before, sorry. Sandra, we do have an opportunity here to address any outstanding zoning requirements of that previous building with this same application, which will be to the benefit of this property owner, even though he's inherited this building. So in other words, what I'm asking is, does the existing garage that was built with the previous minor variance comply with all zoning provisions today? Or do we need to look at a variance for that garage, existing garage, to be sitting proud of the exterior side yard front wall of the house?
I'll just double check the variance from 2015. Permit the request was variance from section 525(2) to permit the detached accessory building to be closer to the road than the principal building, to be in front of the principal building.
That's
I-
two different things when you say that, Sandra. In front of the building and closer to the road is now two different things. Well, it always was two different things.
Yeah. I do see your point. If you would like me to write the decision of the committee today to reflect the recognition of the existing building.
I would like it to make sure that it has legal status so that this property owner or future property owners don't have to apply for a minor variance again, unless there's a completely different structure and proposal. But at the same time, I do have a question of you at staff and others. We're modifying this application possibly midstream. Does it need to be deferred and recirculated? What would be the legal process in that situation?
Something I've never encountered before, quite like this. I'm really not sure what to answer in this case. If committee prefers that this application be deferred and recirculated, we can do that. If they wish to amend the decision page to reflect recognition of the current building, we can do that.
Well, I'm sure with a minor variance approval here in the middle of September, if there's any desire to start construction, a deferral from this meeting to a future meeting with basically is a 30-day delay. And then there's a 20-day appeal period after the notice of decision. We could simultaneously be benefiting this applicant by recognizing the existing structure. However, if we do a deferral, we could be knocking him out of the picture for construction in 2021, if in fact that's the plan. So I
I do
believe
think-
Arthur wants to speak when you're done, Sandra.
Okay, yes, thank you. Deferring it at this point would put it on the November meeting because October is already full. And I'll be sending things out this week. So to get an amended application and perhaps a legal opinion on what to do, that's going to take some time. So I do believe this would be put off to the November meeting.
Well, construction then would be impossible or impractical at least. Arthur, I believe you wanted to provide comment.
Thank you, Chair Chip. I did have a chance to speak with Mr. Gregoire in the past about the application as well as staff on it. I could clarify one thing through the previous committee decision and the construction of the garage, which Sandra's pointed out, was not in the exact same location as the diagram, but I guess to your point, did it still meet the legal requirements of the bylaw? So from the diagram, we can see that it's 12.8 meters back from County Road 45, which meet and exceeds the setback requirements. And with the house being 11.6 meters, it's, and I'll have to look to Sandra to make sure the definition of the sitting proud or sitting in front of the building, whether in fact by being back at a further setback than the house, 12.8 versus 11.6, whether it is in fact behind the house. We know that it's not meeting the setback, or it is sitting in front of the setback with respect to County Road 74, and that's what the committee gave their decision around. So Sandra, through the setback at 12.8 versus 11.6, it meets the zoning bylaw setback provision, but it also meet the setback or the requirement to be not sitting in front of the house.
With respect to numbers, you are correct. I see that. Mr. Anderson, through the chair. I do want to note what the provision actually says.
Okay.
525.2, in a residential zone, any accessory building and or structure, which is not part of the main building, shall be erected to the rear of the projected front or exterior side wall of the main building. So in my opinion, and this has never actually been tested before, so we're doing something novel here. To me, I would take the wall of the house and with a ruler and project that north and south, east and west, as the case may be. And then that would be where I measure from, versus whether or not it's parallel or perpendicular or whatever to the front lot line. It's the projected wall of the main building. So when we have houses that do not sit parallel to a lot line, that does create a number of problems. And it's something that needs to be clarified.
Sandra, if I might ask, does our previous minor variance application request exemption from 525.2?
So the notice that went out based on the 5 to permit the detached accessory building to be closer to the road than the principal building. That's all he says.
Okay, does our previous application though use 525-2 for an exemption request?
Yes,
Then I would feel that this property, or sorry, this previous structure is in fact in compliance with the previous minor variance,
okay,
contrary to our thoughts just a moment ago. And as a result of that, we don't need to modify our application or our decision today.
okay. If committee is agreeable to that,
But I just want to confirm that the previous request and decision was dealing with 525-2.
yes, it was. It was only, that was the only part of the application.
Okay, I think we have had it under control, and I think we do have it under control.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments from anyone at this point in time? I should like to entertain a motion then, please, to my committee members. Moved by Bill, in support. Seconded by Mark. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Reasons?
I believe it meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. I thought the reasons for the request by the applicant made sense. There's no opposition from public or commenting agencies, and I believe there'd be negligible effect any of the neighbors. For all those reasons, voting in the affirmative.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. That completes our list for this morning's session. We are actually requesting a motion for recess, not adjournment, but a motion for recess to 1 o'clock. Sandy, do you have anything further before we move to that motion?
No, I do not.
Thank you. A motion for recess, please. Moved by Larry, seconded by Bill. All those in favor? Carried. See you back at 1 o'clock, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Emily, are we supposed to log out or just leave this on hold?
Given the time lapse, what I'll do is we will just everybody use the same link to rejoin this meeting. So instead of keeping a YouTube channel tied up for an hour and a half.
Okay, so log out and redial. Thank you very much.